Welcome to the Midweek Mailbag, your Detroit Lions midweek podcast where we answer your Detroit Lions questions, which are 99% about injuries this week, but we'll get to that in a second.
Why?
Who knows? I mean, I feel like this is the fourth mailbag where that has just been the main topic. But hey, we answer what you want answered, and that happens to be injuries once again. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at prideofdetroit.com. You can find me at Detroit Online on socials. With me, as always, is the machine, is Erik Why did I do it again? Is Erik Schlitt on Twitter. It's Erik Schlitt. Erik, how are we doing, buddy?
Hey,
are
buddy.
you feeling okay?
Like
are you injured?
I'm at the age I can get injured just sleeping. So, yeah, I mean, it's not today.
Is the answer.
But, yeah, it's inevitable. I could be injured by the end of this show.
Yeah. I mean, let's not put it by. Maybe there's just something in the air because people want to know, Erik, and this is where we're going to start. Why is this happening to us? Why us? Got a couple questions here from Pride of Detroit Direct that we're going to start with because they get special treatment because they're special people. And if you want to get special treatment, go to prideofdetroit.com/subscribe and subscribe to our newsletter that gets you direct access, gets you priority access to Pride of Detroit mailbags. You get post-game videos with us two in it. You get an awesome thing from Ty Schalter. You get a post-game analysis from our good friend Brett Whitefield. Whole bunch of good stuff, and some of me mixed in. The least important part. Anyways, this question comes from Claire, one of our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. Says, "Are injuries based entirely on chance, or at a certain point does scheme play a factor? Is the defense just having really, really bad luck, or does the aggressiveness or style of defense the Lions play lend itself to more injuries?"
I think if people had the secret sauce to keep injuries away, we'd see it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'd see this style of defense works and no one ever gets injured in this style of defense. And then maybe the league would shift more towards that. Or, this playing surface is, injury free. Right. And the inevitability of it is that I think most injuries are just, victims of circumstance. You catch something wrong, or as a freak occurrence of where a teammate is in proximity to where you are when something happens. And, we've seen freak injuries all the time. Look at last year's Super Bowl when the San Francisco linebacker tore his ACL, literally just jogging out onto the field. It's really hard to say. And point a finger at like one cause. And teams are very adamant in their pursuit of trying to figure out how to prevent injuries. But the majority of the training staff's time does seem to be in the recovery process, because I think injuries are inevitable in this game just because of the physical nature and the size and speed and athleticism of the players in today's game.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the points I'd hit. Just players are bigger and faster than they've ever been, seemingly bigger and faster than maybe the human body is prepared to handle. Certainly when they're firing at each other like missiles. That's going to lead to injuries probably on rates we've never seen before, because force equals mass times acceleration, right? Like when the masses is bigger and the acceleration is larger, like, you're going to have bigger force, and that's just math. That's just there's math on this podcast now. Physics.
Yeah, good job, Newton. And then the way the game used to be played, like, back in the good old days when they used to just clothesline people, right? Like they've changed the rules to eliminate those types of injuries. But when you're trying to eliminate certain types of injuries, it inevitably, again, other injuries pop up.
Yeah.
When you're trying to eliminate targets to the head, and you tell guys to hit lower, then you start getting lower leg injuries. And there's a direct cause and effect that you can see. Concussions are down, knee injuries are up. Like those are related. And so the rules go into it, the physical nature of the game goes into it, the athleticism of the players go into it. There's all kinds of things that factor in. And I know it'd be easy and comforting to point to one cause and say, that's it.
Right.
But really, that's not the case.
Yeah, and I understand too that the feeling like this is uniquely Lions this year. Like, why is it happening to them? I think if you stretch out time long enough, it evens out for every team. Like last year, they were actually pretty average when it came to the amount of injuries that they suffered. If you look at a stat like adjusted lines or adjusted games lost, and I get the argument here from Claire, and part of me that has certainly crossed my mind too, right? Like this is a team that just flies to the ball, right? They're very physical in what they do. They're physical on the defensive front. Their secondary hits hard. They prefer their cornerbacks, right, to be part of a very physical game, and that's Carlton's career, by the way. Like he has always been that physical of a corner, and yes,
right,
he is injured more than most cornerbacks, and I think that plays at least a little bit of a part. So maybe there's a little bit of truth to what Claire is saying, but that is what every team wants. Every team wants to be super physical and dominating and, feared, right? If you're going to be feared, if you want to create this fear of, hey, you're not going to catch a ball over the middle, and if you are, you're going to pay for it, you have to be very physical. And could that result in more injuries? Maybe, maybe not. It's very hard to parse through that data. Especially when some of it is, like Aleem McNeil's injury, right? That wasn't a result of him being overly physical. He just landed weird, and it was an ACL tear. And so, like Alex Anzalone's was a broken forearm that was a result of Brian Branch maybe being a little bit overly physical, right? It's
Aiden Hutchinson, Khalil Dorsey, Carlton Davis's jaw. Those are all just like, those just happen to be freaky things
wrong
too.
Place,
like
wrong times. Yeah.
Right. There's so many different variables that go into how injuries occur, when they occur. I think what ends up happening is you end up chasing your tail, trying to find answers, because there's not one. And, we can speculate on things in the media or as fans, and teams will hire, employees or maybe outside firms to investigate stuff like that. That happens all the time, just to try and figure out what it is. And the reality is, from our standpoint, is there's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know. Like it's really hard to say. Like, yes, the Lions are physical in their they're physical in their games. We all see that firsthand, but they're physical in practice sometimes too, but then they also back off. Like that's part of the preventative nature. Like some of that they're trying to slow down. Some of it they're trying to speed up. There's arguments both ways as well. Like if you're not physical enough, then you're not prepared for the physical nature of the game, and that lends itself to injury. Or if you
whole
prepare
Dan Campbell speech in Hard Knocks. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then if you do prepare too much, then you put yourself in a vulnerable state. That's why they have these divisions of the team where you look at individual players and say, this player's working too hard, or this player's in an okay space. They can come back to a full practice, or they do a ridiculous amount of work behind the scenes that we don't have all the information on, and it's constantly ongoing. So for us to speculate, oh, well, they need to go to grass. Like I think it's a bit naive on our parts.
It's an oversimplification. That's what everyone is looking for, right?
Yes.
It's an oversimplification. Let's have an easy answer to fix all these injury problems, and there isn't one. And it's worth pointing out, this is a new strength and conditioning team. Not all of them, but it's led by Mike Fisher, who's new, but also one of the most respected people in the business. And I think pointing to them is also a massive mistake. and a massive oversimplification of what's happening. I do want to talk a little bit about the turf real quick because that was a question here from Jason Wang. Says, given the number of lower body injuries that happened, turf, which I know was upgraded recently at Ford Field, is there any chance they can go and use grass at Ford Field like they do at State Farm Stadium for the Cardinals?
Well, here's the thing that when I look at that, I look at the fact that they practice on grass and they get injured at practice. I look at the fact that they do training camp on grass and they get injured in training camp all the time as well. I know that there are some studies out there that say that grass is more forgiving.
Sure.
And I certainly understand that. But it's also not like a completely clean answer, right? Like there's several guys on their IR report that got injured on grass, right?
Sure.
And as far as the turf goes, I do want to reiterate the turf, the players didn't feel was up to an acceptable level, and they complained about it to management.
Yeah.
And Sheila pushed up the timeline to replace it that offseason ahead of schedule.
Yep.
And they researched it and they said, what is the safest surface that we can have that we can put inside of the Ford Field? And then they also put it inside their training field adjacent to the grass.
Right.
And they replaced all of that ahead of time in an effort to get ahead of these injuries and to prevent them as well. So they've just spent a ton of money on that. I don't think switching is realistic. And I don't even know if switching would be the right answer anyways. And again, because I'm not informed enough on it.
Right. I'll say this. The NFLPA wants this solution. They do. They've come out and said it. We've talked to the NFLPA this year, and that was kind of a topic of discussion. In terms of the viability of doing that, I don't think people understand how big of a process that is in Arizona. And they also have one thing that Detroit doesn't, which is sunlight. What they literally do every day is roll that grass outside the stadium and let it bake in the Arizona sun every day, and then roll it back into the stadium, which would, in Detroit, you can't do that at all during the winter, right? Like, I don't know the last time I saw the sun. It feels like it's been 3 months. Secondly, you have to kind of restructure the stadium so that you can do something like that, right? Like, I don't know how you roll in grass.
You can't.
Yeah.
The physical location of the stadium and the foundation that it's built on, they can't even expand the press area in the basement. They can't. They need larger basement facilities to accommodate more players. They can't even do that. They can't make those physical adjustments. So you would be talking about buying a new location downtown just to house turf.
Yeah, just not. You know what?
And
Sorry, Comerica Park. You're now just the field for Ford Field. You're just the grass.
What if they could do that? What if they could create enough like an underbelly of Comerica, and then maybe put a dome on Comerica.
Yeah.
And it's just not realistic with the current setting.
Yes. And it's almost like a modern miracle what they do at Arizona. It's super cool, and I highly suggest people reading up on it if you want to know how that process works. But it takes the forethought of doing that before you build the stadium, really, to make it functional.
Yeah. Like the Lions didn't, when this stadium was built, 20 something years ago, right? Like it was it wasn't prepared for some of the things that we need in a modern day NFL stadium, like
Wi-Fi.
Some
right?
of the, they had to add that in, right?
Yeah.
They're adding in, because of the success of the team, and they're having to they want more media. There are more media is coming and wants access. They're having to add auxiliary rooms that you don't even have access to the field, but you have access then to the players after the game. So they're having to add these things in as they go. But the structural foundation, once that's support, it's there.
Right.
And they have one tunnel that gets them access to both locker rooms, and then the Lions have a shortcut, off from their bench to their locker room as well. But it's the space is very limited in the current design, and it's too big of a building to try and like add things on.
All right. Next question here comes from Karen. It says, why is there a limit to how many players can be signed back from IR? What purpose does that limit serve? So just as a quick reminder, you can return 8 players from injured reserve during the regular season, 2 more if you make the playoffs. Erik, you want to explain to the people why that limit exists?
I think it's basically designed to keep teams from taking advantage, right?
It's an NFLPA thing for sure.
Right. So the NFL, the entire brand of the NFL is based on a competitive balance between 32 teams. That's every offseason, the NFL sells hope to 32 teams that this could be your year. And every year, 32 fan bases say, this is our turn for a shot at the division, the championship, and et cetera, right? And so it's the reason why you have 53-man limits on your active roster. And it's why you have limits on your practice squads. It's why you have limits on how many players you can have active on game days. It's all designed to keep rosters smaller and decision-making harder so that you're absolutely 100% sure that this is the move you want to make in order to keep this player. And then if you lose that player, another team can get better if that player is then better than a player on their team. And so you're constantly like shifting this middle, I don't know, like the blue collar class of the NFL, right? You're constantly shifting them between teams where, they're better than some of the players you might have, and they're good stability players, but sometimes, they're not good enough for a really good team. That's why you see players shifting all the time. It's all designed to keep teams very competitive with one another and keeping rosters smaller and talent across all 32 teams.
Yeah, and to me, it's also protection of some of the players that are injured. Where, this guy's maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but we're going to throw him on IR for 4 so that we can fit another guy on the roster, so that we can, and players don't love being put on IR. A lot of them think they don't need to be on IR for a full 4 weeks. That's happened recently with this team, with a lot of teams, right? And by limiting the amount of times a team can do that, you're protecting these players that maybe have a 2-week injury, maybe have a 3-week injury, but an NFL team might say, well, you're not that good enough anyways, so let's put you on IR. We'll bring you back in 4 weeks. In the meantime, let's go get someone else an opportunity to play. Let's save a roster spot. So I think part of it is motivated by that. The players themselves don't like being put on IR, even though you're paid normally. It's not that. It's a matter of like being sidelined when you don't necessarily have to be sidelined. It's a way to protect the players in that sense. All right. You have one more thing to add on that? Or can we move on?
Nope. Keep going. All
right. This is only tangentially injury related. John on Twitter asked, could you see the Lions run special formations with Vaki and Gibbs in the backfield, such as the Wildcats? Certainly, this is a reaction to the Dave Montgomery injury, which at this point is a little bit more up in the air than it was yesterday because he hasn't been placed on injured reserve after Dan Campbell basically said he was going to get surgery and his season's over. Now Montgomery's even, he's at a coat drive saying, we'll see. Like, there's some things we have to figure out. And when asked if he can return, he says, I hope so. So there's, as of this recording, there's at least a little bit of a hope that David Montgomery returns. But anyways, what do the Lions do without him? John wants to know if something like a Wildcat or Vaki out there with Gibbs is possible. What are you thinking about what they do there?
I don't think necessarily a Wildcat. I think Montgomery was your Wildcat guy because he's got that throwing
True.
history. right?
Sure.
And that's not necessarily in Vaki or Gibbs's histories. And so it would surprise me if they did Wildcat, but I could definitely see, because both have excellent pass catching skills, that you could put them both out on the field at the same time and then, split one out or split both out, right? My kind of gut feeling is while Montgomery's out for whatever length of time that will be, you're going to see a pretty massive increase in Craig Reynolds, and then you're going to see a little sprinkle of Aki.
Yeah.
I know Vaki is exciting, and we saw some flashes in the preseason, and I am as excited as anyone to see him on the field. But he's come out and he said to me, like, I need this many touches before I'm going to be ready to see consistent NFL snaps. And he thinks it's going to take, a significant amount of time. And
Yeah.
is he there? I don't know. I don't know. Like, he's been making progress, and he's gotten some run earlier in the season on some of those blowouts where he got some offensive snaps, and those certainly, those are certainly more valuable. But I think he's going to be sprinkled in cautiously. Maybe you'll see more unique plays, not necessarily Wildcat, but maybe some other unique skills, like I said. But I'm expecting Craig Reynolds to be the workhorse when Gibbs is not on the field.
I'm with you. I think we should all it's an annoying part of NFL injuries, but there's always like a massive what this means for your fantasy team response, and people are like, oh, Jahmyr Gibbs is suddenly going to be the workhorse back, and yes, Gibbs's workload is going to increase. I don't think there's any question about that, but this team is very much under the belief that they need to protect their running backs and go by a committee model, and so it's not going to be an insignificant amount of snaps, I think, for Craig Reynolds. I think we're talking up, at least maybe like 30% of the time he's in there. The question for me, like the biggest loss for Montgomery to me, I mean, we talk about how this team gambles on third and fourth down as much as they do. Who is going to be that short yardage back? Who is that guy that they're going to turn to on fourth and ones, on third and ones, on third and twos, on fourth and twos? I think it probably is still going to be Gibbs, but you're certainly taking a little bit of a step back in terms of the ability to break tackles there, and that's where you're going to hurt the most if Montgomery is indeed out for the season, I think.
Yeah, the nice thing is Gibbs does have some of that talent. It's just a different kind of talent.
Right.
Instead of, you can still run your off tackles. You can still run your B gap right off Panay's butt in between him and Zeitler. You can, but maybe you're not running A gap, power straight ahead type of thing as much anymore.
Sure.
Now they did that with Craig last year in the playoffs, if you recall, against the Bucks. I think
he wasn't supposed to be out there though, right?
Yeah, but he ran him A gap right there, and it worked.
That's true.
He's got a touchdown to his credit, and so Craig's an interesting back. He's more of a balanced back as opposed to like. Like Gibbs is more. Gibbs leans a little bit more athletic. Montgomery leans a little bit more power, but they're still both very good in a lot of different areas. I would say Craig is more balanced. I don't know if he leans any which way. If I had to guess, maybe he leans power a little bit more, but he's basically a balanced guy. Vaki's very balanced like that as well. He's bigger, but I would say he leans more athletic because of his hands. But again, he's got some power elements to his game as well. So, but really the backups are just kind of balanced guys that can fill in at different spots. And so you're going to see some slight alterations to the run game, but I don't think it's going to be as significant as, some might project.
I agree. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about more of what the Lions are going to do in the wake of injuries. We're going to look a little bit ahead into Week 18 and what could be on the line for that season finale, and a whole lot more when we come back here on the Midweek Mailbag. We'll be right back. Okay, what's up, everybody? Let's hang out with our live audience here a little bit. I see you guys chatting about Texas routes, trying to get Eric all riled up. J-Dub says Justin Rogers reporting throwbacks for the regular season finale.
Oh, son of a bitch.
I mean, you should have done it on Thanksgiving, but, whatever.
No, I'm sorry. What was that? I was just reading RGA's tweet.
RGA's tweet?
Or a message in Twitch.
What was it? God. Why are you freaking out?
That's not freaking out. I'm just annoyed.
What's up, Jay-Z? Let me...
Do you not see it?
No, I don't.
Cleet Blakeman is the ref.
Great.
My favorite. At least the last two times he's reffed against the Lions, it hasn't been god-awful.
You and your referee obsession. All right, let me get through some alerts. Because we had a Nick the Greek influx of a bunch of bits, and we'll get to those in a second here. But Beamer, 9 months subscribed to the channel. Thank you, Beamer. Das Gibb, 38 months, says I choose moldy bread over filet all the time anyways. God, I hope that's not true.
I was actually gonna start the show by eating some moldy bread, just right out the gate, just to show my, allegiance.
So when Dan Campbell is on the radio, I listen on Twitch, because Twitch is like a full minute ahead of the radio, and as I found out today, very unedited, very uncensored, and so when I'm watching this happen, I'm just like, my jaw is on the floor, and I'm like, why is no one else tweeting about this right now? And I'm just like, Dan Campbell is cutting a promo, and I knew the second a clip of that went on the internet or whatever, it was going to go viral, and sure enough, it did. I made sure to grab what I thought was the best quote, which was the moldy bread fillet thing. And a funny thing happened, Eric, and you'll like this because I know you've been victim of something like this before. For about 2 minutes, Adam Schefter used my video.
Yes,
and tweeted it out.
Schefter stole my stuff twice.
But like he did it the like legal Twitter way, where you just like
quote tweet. Yeah. So if you clicked on it, it would go to his link.
It would go to my. It wasn't a quote tweet. It was like the tweet video. So
you tweet the video.
But
there's a sublink back to it.
But then he deleted it 2 minutes later and used Ari's instead.
Yeah,
for the exact same
right.
tweet. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you gotta protect your own guys, I guess. Whatever. I really don't care. Like, I don't make money on Twitter. No,
I do.
Money on Twitter.
I don't. I'm not. It's not about money. He's done it. He's done that to me twice. Twice.
Yeah.
That's
just how it works.
The first time he did it to me, I knew he did it to me because I cropped a photo, and the way that I cropped it was unusual, and that's how I knew he got it. And the second time, I made sure to include
I shouldn't have opened
something.
this can of worms with you.
I made sure to include something so that I knew if he took it, because I knew I was the first one on it, and so I did that with the little thing to know. And sure as crap, you look at my tweet, you look at his tweet, and it's got that little, and I'm like, that son of a bitch, twice.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Keith Schmidt, who says, "Do you guys think Colton Love Island or Bill Johnson will be the missing piece for the Lions roster next year?" I believe Colton Love Island is Wait, I got to get his name right. I'm not going to.
Okay.
Is it Colston?
You got it.
Loveland? Is that right?
No.
Dang it.
It's not right. All right, it is right. I didn't want to give you credit for it.
but I love that I continue to get it wrong. And
there's so many
when he
variations.
announced that he was gonna go to the NFL a week or so ago, I was kind of surprised no one added me. Maybe someone did, but I didn't see it. I don't know who Bill Johnson is. Is that a real person in the draft?
I think it's Will Johnson with like the corner.
The corner.
That would be my guess.
That would make sense. Keith, you jokester. All right, let me get through the rest of these alerts. Where Sid Doskib, Chaos Cam. They for the 11 months. Sheila Hams, Bulge. Ugh. 27 months. Should I go back to Dirk the Knife or Killer Cornbread? Hashtag the machine. I like
Say
Killer
that one more
Cornbread.
time.
They want to change
like
their name
Killer
back to what it
Cornbread.
was before. Either
Killer-
Dirk
they
the
had-
Knife or Killer Cornbread. I like Killer
They
Cornbread.
had cornbread at the stadium this week. So
I didn't even
if
see
you want
it,
some
but I
recency,
saw someone eating it.
it was good.
Hmm.
It was the only thing Rich was eating. It was I was looking around.
What?
Rich.
They had chicken.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Shout out to Rich. Chaos Cam, 300 bits. Appreciate that. Nick the Greek, here we go. 100 bits says, I wept for 4 straight hours after Aleem was carted off and then woke up the next day and cried all day and drank myself to sleep. Is that enough weeping to make me a true Lions fan, or should I still be weeping now?
Wow. I feel some sarcasm in there.
I was listening to 97.1 this morning before Dan was on, just because I was waiting for Dan to be on. And they were beating up a little bit on Costa, because Costa's like concerned. Like he's looking at the Lions roster. He's like, I'm concerned. I don't think they're Super Bowl favorites anymore. They quite literally aren't Super Bowl favorites anymore. And fans were there was a bunch of Erik Schlitz on the line being like, you're not that you say this to people, but like, I believe in this team, unlike that coward coward Costa. And I'm just like, dude, he just has concerns for the team. It's all that like in the name of a true fan. You're not a true fan unless you believe in this team, and you have to believe in this team. Like, I don't have to do anything. What I think about the team isn't going to affect the team at all. Like, this idea that like, listen, you have to have grit just like the team and believe, and it's like, why? It doesn't affect anything.
I've noticed.
I mean, I want to believe, but like, I can't force it. Sorry.
I've noticed. No, I've noticed some very unique reactions. Like, and I think everybody's like reacting in their own way. I don't think there's like one exact way. I do think there's like I want to point the fingers at one thing and figure out what that one thing is. There's a bunch of people that are trying to rally behind the grit, and that's fine. I think there's people who are moving on to Chicago,
Sure.
and that's fine as well.
Yeah.
For example, in my household, I am of the it is what it is. Next man up. Let me see who it's going to be. Let me evaluate that. And my wife is much nicer than I am, and is like, oh, I feel bad for Jameer because now his buddy isn't there, and she's like,
dude, did you see the Instagram post, man?
Hold, this is where I'm going.
Okay.
because she's like, she's all like heartfelt, and she's like, I feel bad for them that they're not able to participate. And she's like, she's very much empathizing with the players themselves as opposed to like the team. And I'm in the team mode. Next up. And she's like, you need to be more, you need to embrace your empathy side more. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people are doing it. And then you tweet out the Gibbs with the heartbreak. And she just shows it, and I'm like, God darn it, Jeremy.
And then
You
Montgomery did the Sonic holding knuckles. Oh man.
Yeah, oh no, I know. Oh. I look like a real jerk.
A real sociopath. That's why you're the machine. You got no feelings.
Because I was like, I think, maybe it's just because I'm this is the business that I'm in, and then here we are. You're in the same spot I am, but you have time to be empathetic and make me look like a schmuck. You're gonna earn points on your dating profile, that's for sure.
What I think, I honestly, I feel like this week has progressed exactly as it should. Like, we are going through the stages of grief perfectly, where it's just like Monday was a sad day. Monday was frustrating, and I think a lot of people went through a lot of emotions there. Like you're sad after the game, you get mad once you hear about David Montgomery, which no one even knew about. Like all of that, it was frustrating, it was sad, and then Tuesday morning, Dan Campbell comes on the radio and says, "Stop crying. It's time to move on. Like, let's get this shit. Like, we're ready to go. Stop crying about your steak tartars and let's eat this moldy bread and be happy with it. And we're gonna put up 50 yards of offense and still win. We're gonna give up 600 yards on defense and we're still gonna win. And I'm gonna have a fucking smile on my face. Like, I'm just like, okay, all right. You know what? That's what I needed to hear. Let's go. Man, like." You know me. I can be a curmudgeon at times. I can be a Debbie Downer at times. I can be a wet blanket at times. That snapped me out of it in a second, which tells me how freaking good of a motivator he is.
No, yeah. Like if you listen to that speech, and you're still wallowing. Listen again, because like I feel like that should have pulled most people out.
And even like. I didn't hear the entire clip, but Jared Goff was on the radio later today. It was just like, he asked him like, hey, you know, do you have any message to these fans that are like bummed out right now? How they're feeling? He's like, bummed. Why are they bummed out? He's like, well, you know, all the injuries and any of that stuff. He's like, we're fine. Like, tell them that. I'm like, we're 12-2. We're fine. We're going to be okay. I'm just like, oh, okay. I like that too. But I like really quick. I want to go back to Dan's thing because I think the video part of the speech cuts out the first part of his answer, which is the empathic side. It's the part that Erik lacks. It's the
it's that most people don't care about. That's what they cut out.
He literally says that. He's like, most people are just like, you're losing the production, you're losing the player on the field, the skill set. This locker room is also missing a guy, a buddy, a guy you can laugh with. Like, let's not forget about that part of it, and let's use that as motivation to make sure. Like, I love. He used this yesterday too. I love the idea of just being like, hey, let's make sure that these injuries aren't in vain. Let's use that in motivation. Yeah. These guys work their ass off to get us to 12-2. Don't let that sacrifice go to waste.
I think that's his best angle because I think that hit home for me in my steel heart that I have. When he was like, let's not, let's do it for the Gipper stuff. Like that's hits home. That's great. It's a perfect angle. It's if you are feeling, if you're in the locker room and you're feeling a little like, that's your motivation. Like it's very smart. And he needs to keep hammering that home. And I mean, he's pretty incredible at what he does. And I said it yesterday. I think this team is still talented, and I think it's the coaching staff that can really help them overcome what's ahead of them.
No question. I'm definitely back on. I'm certainly not on like, oh, this team is still the favorites to win the Super Bowl, but I'm still I know
pretty close to that. Yeah.
But I'm certainly thinking winning the Super Bowl is very much still on the table. Like that's I still think there's a better chance Mosley starts than they go 2-2 over this 4-game stretch. Like I'm still in that boat. I'm not
even though they're one down.
The thing is, like, I do think they're better than the next 3 teams they play. I question how they'll match up now, even with Green Bay a little bit, because Green Bay really hung with them in that last game. And, if you look at some advanced statistics, maybe even played better than the Lions in that game, but didn't win. The Eagles, to me, are if I had to pick a team that's going to come out of the NFC right now, it'd be the Eagles. As much as I hate saying that, because I hate the Eagles and I hate Sirianni and all that. I just think they have the most talented roster.
Yeah, but I said this before. They have the most talented roster, but their coaching staff doesn't match. And so
But
when you
their
I
coaching
will
staff
take
is also in the midst of a 10-game winning streak, 9-game winning streak. Like,
no,
it's working.
The players are in the midst of a 10-game winning streak.
okay,
The coaching staff is just being dragged along. Have you
Stop
seen? Have you paid it? Look, I'm not joking. Have you paid attention to what's going on over there? Where
they're yelling at each other. Yeah, I get it.
No,
but it's
but
working.
No, but it's working because they're talented. That's it. Like Sirianni, he couldn't even get past a position coach to talk to one of his players. If you haven't seen the video of Sirianni trying to go talk to Jalen Carter, all of the eyes are focused on Sirianni trying to get past the D-line coach, and the D-line coach saying, no, I got it. It's fine. I got it. And trying to push him away. But if you peek behind him in the background, do you know what Jalen Carter was doing?
No.
Laughing. He just got called for a personal foul, and the coach wanted to talk to him about it. The DL coach wouldn't let him, and the player is laughing in the background. Sirianni is not in control of that locker room. And here's the deal. As good as they are, if you don't have stability at the top of your organization, the playoffs exposes that.
We'll see.
We have seen talented rosters collapse.
Sure.
Because
We've also
of their
seen
leadership.
Dysfunction take a seat.
Sure.
To talent.
But I'm going to bet on the coaching staff.
Okay. All right, we are very slowly crawling through all these alerts. Let me get to some of the other ones here. Nick DeReek, another 100 bits. Yeah, says I listened to Dan Campbell's pep talk and I ran through a wall in my family home. Does repairing a huge hole, caving to my wife's demands, mean I am not a true fan? Yes, you got to leave it. You got to leave it and you let the cold air come in this winter.
He doesn't live in cold weather though.
Oh, that's all right.
I don't think he does anyway.
We got another Bulge subscription. Brad Holmes's 14 months says, win out, get the 1 seed, see what you can do in the playoffs, and don't lose hope. Nick, they're getting another 100 bits. Says, Brad Holmes's Bulge, can you please mail me a signed Jared Goff jockstrap just as a reward for being me? I am going to send out the auction items tomorrow, by the way, to the people that won it. If you're watching. Q note. Thank you for the first time subscription. Appreciate that. Nick the Creek, another 100 bits, says, please take a moment to remember what it is like to have to tune in every Sunday at 1 p.m. just to see Matt Patricia's ample bosoms lead the team loss after loss. Appreciate what we have. I mean, that's the moldy bread right there.
I mean,
should that just be his nickname now? Can Matt Patricia just be moldy bread?
Oh God, no!
That's where we came from.
What is North Carolina? The ACC. You could watch them on the ACC network, right? If you're really desperate to get your fix.
We'll see.
I don't think anybody has that here though.
No. QPEC, 22 months subscribed to the channel. Lenoble, 19 months, says had to be talked off a ledge with all these injuries, but still faith in these Lions. Rerun over on YouTube, a $5 super chat says, have we seen a number 2 offense and a lower to mid-tier defense win the Super Bowl? Can the Lions do it? I have to imagine you have seen that plenty of times, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you'd prefer to have that defense in the top 10 these days, but I think you can get by without one. Again, it's single elimination once you get to the playoffs, man. You just need a good week. Defensively, I would like to see this team turn into what it turned into defensively late last year, where it was, okay, maybe we're hemorrhaging a bunch of yards, but we're getting splash plays, we're getting sacks, we're getting interceptions. Yeah, I think you have to turn up the aggressiveness again, which is, that's right in Aaron Glenn's wheelhouse, right? You get Iffy back maybe as soon as this week, probably more likely next week. Maybe he's a little bit of a spark plug that you can, I don't know, create some disruption with, whether as a sub package guy, or if you wanna, I know you're no longer in favor of this, but if you want to put Branch down at nickel and Iffy at safety.
No, I don't. Not even a little bit. I don't.
Yeah.
I now have completely altered the way that I look at how Branch is used. I think Branch could be one of the best 5 nickels in the NFL. I also think he can be one of the best 3 or 5 safeties in the NFL. And for this defense, the safety is so much more paramount to what they want to do than the nickel. The nickel is just a position. You can use them creatively and you can get some plays, but you're only getting a handful of 4 or 5 impact plays max a game max. At safety, you can have 10 impact plays a game if you want to. Like, safety is just such an integral part. I don't want to touch the safety duo. They are the best in the NFL right now. I don't even want to bother with that. I'm all for playing Iffy in the slot. They've been using Jamal Adams. He's been slipping out into some slot reps and times as well. And so, like, I'm game for that. You want to play more nickel? I'm game for that. You want to play show some dime? Sweet. I'm all aboard. Because if you're going to play dime, you're going to play a Meek, and then you're going to play one of the safeties on the other side. Great. Sign me up. Don't touch the safeties. All right. They're doing great. Don't disrupt the best part of your defense.
We'll talk a little bit more about the DBs when we get back to the show.
Oh, you should have cut me off. Now everyone's going to have to listen to me say it all over again.
How am I going to stop you at this point? That's like trying to stop a moving train with my hands. Once you get going, plus I know what you do when someone tries to stop you too.
What do I do?
I've seen the looks.
No. Well, don't cut me off, man.
Mike Lang, thank you for the 13 months subscribed on Twitch, and Z Snyder, our good buddy, 19 months subscribed on Twitch. We got Pride of Detroit representing in the chat, by the way. I don't know if you saw, nice. Ty was hanging around a little bit earlier while working on his article for Pride of Detroit Direct. Hopefully I'm not distracting him by saying his name. When do the Lions start Hutch's clock? I'm still not buying it. I'm just going to be quite honest. I'm still not buying Hutchinson playing in the Super Bowl. I'm just not.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best marketers in the NFL. Him and his family are terrific marketers.
Yes.
And it just seems wild to me. Now, at the same time, his dad is an emergency room doctor, right? Sure. And so I guess
even in the quote today, his mom's he tells a story about his mom, like, just the other day, saying, like, what if you can't do it? And his response was, I have no other choice. Like, what are you? Are you in a movie right now?
Listen, I think they were sitting around at dinner last night and they were like, listen, I'm going to be on this podcast. What should I say? What if you sell me as, like, saying, oh, don't rush the fans. And then, then I'll come back. That'll look really good. Like, you guys are holding me back and I'm trying. I think it's marketing and I think they're brilliant at it. I think they're just great. And I think it's all scripted. I think
he's,
but he's fantastic.
I haven't mentioned anything to the public yet. When should we do
but
this?
I've told Jay Glazer.
Now that there's enough injuries that they might not make the Super Bowl. Okay, I'll say I'll be back in the Super Bowl now.
It's great. It's great marketing. Come on. Like,
there's nothing wrong with being positive. I'm just saying medically I don't buy it.
I've never seen a player be on IR for 10 weeks yet still find his way into headlines as well as he does.
Yeah.
It's great. Like, he's marketing his brand. Okay. Since he came into the league, it's been very brand heavy. Because it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of like I don't want to say it's like Ndamukong Suh, because Ndamukong Suh had like different goals and different, but like he had other agendas that would help him beyond football. And I feel like Hutchinson, he's playing the long game. I feel like he is setting himself
Yeah.
up to be constantly in the light so that his name is like, he was having a defensive player of the year season, but even if he wasn't, like even if he was like starting to trail off, he still has a smart way of keeping his name out there. When he went to the Pro Bowl, he still found a way to get the mic in his hand at the Pro Bowl, right? Like he's very smart in keeping his face in front. He's now on commercials. Like that's going to help him become a face of the league long term. Yes, he's highly talented, but there's a lot of highly talented guys that aren't
Marketable.
as in the media as much as he is.
Yeah.
And that's why when his NFL's career is over, he's probably going to be he's going to be on TV. He's going to be an analyst. Like those are probably like long-term things. Like I look at what he's doing and I think he's setting himself up like for his whole life. Like this is what he wants to, and it's very smart. It's very deliberate.
Yeah.
The whole family is very brilliant. And there's a reason why they're able to do that. The fact that he's highly talented is just awesome. It just, it helps accelerate things.
Right.
But
we're not.
I'm not knocking him.
Yeah, we're not hating on him for doing what he does. In fact, he's playing the game.
Very smart.
It is very
smart.
Yes.
Yes.
But doesn't mean I have to buy that he's going to. I mean, listen, there are some doctors that say like the Super Bowl is right around the time when the recovery for something like this might end, like the short end of the 4 to 6 months or whatever it was, right? So it's possible. I mean, even when you ask Dan Campbell about it, he's just like, yeah, my opinion hasn't changed from the minute it happened. It's the nature of that injury. It's going to be hard because like, yeah, he might be able to like start running around, but like, is he going to have the strength that he had in that leg by the Super Bowl? I don't know, man.
Yeah. I'd rather see him on State Farm commercials than the devil. You know what I mean? Like that's
devil. You're calling Jake from State Farm the devil?
No.
Oh, sorry. I know what you're saying now. You're talking about discount double check. Okay. All right, let's move on.
Cannot confirm nor deny that.
Charizard, 24-month subscriber channel, says the Bills, who usually don't run 4 to 5 wide receiver formations, seem to come out quite often in goal line and third down situations, even before Davis and McNeil went out. Is this something we should expect to see from offenses in the future?
I'm sorry. I was looking at people guess. Who was right? Say that one more time. Say the question one more time. I'm sorry. Unless you have an answer, then I'll pick it up.
The Bills, who usually don't run 4 to 5 wide receiver formations, seems to come out quite often in goal line and third down situations, even before Davis and McNeil went out. Is this something we should expect to see from in offenses in the future? So I think what they're saying in short yardage situation, the Bills spread it out a little bit more often than normal.
I think every decision they started making was predicated on the fact that they were getting their running backs in coverage against linebackers.
Yeah.
And they were taking advantage of that all day long. And so, and again, the Bills running backs run routes differently than any other team utilizes their running backs in the NFL. Like it's not just flats and stuff. It's deep wheel routes, or they throw down the field to their running backs. Like their running backs are used in a lot of ways like wide receivers. And so I think most of their decision making was predicated on that. Let's do what we have to do to get our running backs against their linebackers because their linebackers can't stop them. And they just went to the well over and over and over and over again. So will teams watch that tape and say, hey, yeah, we got to get our running backs against linebackers? Yeah, probably. Like that's what NFL teams do. But at the same time, linebackers one spot where lines might get healthy. What
this is also going to be a little bit in the podcast questions.
Oh, okay. Okay. But then like, okay, thank you. I'll just stop there. But like, yeah, I think it was all predicated on matchup. I'll put a bow on it right there. Right as you're taking
I do think there was a little bit of trying to get the Lions to loosen up the box a little bit, like have fewer players between the hash marks and run on those, and they saw some success doing that. Widening, a lot of times they would widen out their tight ends rather than be in line. They'd have them out wide. That would draw a linebacker out, and then they just run up the middle. Like everything was working.
Everything was designed to expose or to take advantage of where they were better, and they did great at it. The credit to the Bills. Like, I don't think there's a Bills level team left on the Lions schedule. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the point that I was trying to make on the POD cast is like, I think a lot of people are underestimating just how good of an offense that is, and just how well built they were to take advantage of the Lions' particular weaknesses that week.
And look, sometimes you have to get into those games and lose them in order, like Dan said, sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth to remember where you're at. And so,
yeah,
if they can utilize this loss and say, now we know better, now we know how to adjust, then more power to them.
Two things really quick. Luke Baru, $2 super chat says, but still no interceptions in 4+ games. Yeah, that's going to need to pick up. And I don't really have a good reason as to why it's not happening.
Well, teams aren't testing the Lions as deep anymore, and the only times that they are is when they're testing them on the outside. So they're basically avoiding the safeties as much as they can, because the safeties were the ones generating most of the picks. So I think and again, all the more reason like to keep Branch at the safety level, because now you're taking away parts of the middle of the field. Now, the Lions have shifted to use more single high, right?
Yeah.
Where they use more cover one and they keep Kirby back there. And that's, I think, part of it as well, because they've had to drop Branch down a little bit more. They've dropped him down into coverage, kind of like a de facto nickel. And they've tried to keep, because I think they felt like they needed to stay big without trying to keep as many big bodies on. But I don't know. The more single high you end up having the run, the harder it is for those interceptions to come as well, especially when you're running cover one instead of cover three.
The other thing is someone wanted us to break down the onside kicks, which I'll be honest, I have not watched since they happened, so I kind of want to do it.
Okay. I'm going to get a water. You get them queued up.
Oh, they've been queued up, sir. Oh, double me. Nope. All right. Once again, shout out to NFL Pro, which is awesome. You can $100 a year easily queue up these plays, which we're going to do real quick. Man, that is such a good play. I guess I didn't even realize that he tipped it to himself. But like, that gets such a good bounce. Look how high he has to go to get it. Hey, speaking of Craig Reynolds, shout out Craig Reynolds making that tackle. Let's watch the other angle. I don't know if this is going to be any better. That's just, I mean, look at that bounce. Is that Kirby that was going to be the one that was supposed to grab it? Yeah. Kirby on the outside. That's Kirby. I don't know who that is. Can't imagine the Eagles are going to be that good on the second onside kick. But it was kind of an interesting style. It seems like maybe there's a better path to recovering.
Jake Bates threw his body into it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I love that, but It almost worked.
I mean, he walloped him.
I'm curious as to what those guys saw that they were so sure that they had recovered. I mean, you kind of saw it on that one angle where it was just like the ball seemed like it was under Jake Bates for a second.
What I recall is that as the ball was coming back out, I thought it hit Turner in the leg and went right back into the pile. I don't think we're going to
see anything from this angle.
I mean, you'd have to
Turner's
like
knee hits it in. Maybe let's watch the. It hits
his thigh.
Let's watch the broadcast angle. I'm sure has it better.
If the replays that they have.
Yeah.
I seem to, when we were in the stadium, one of the angles we have in the stadium showed the ball.
Look at the timing there.
My goodness. Right here. Now watch the ball pop back out, and then right
Turner
there, he kind of he hit, with his right knee. Right there.
It just kicks it right back into the.
There.
But like, I mean, there's just like
just sitting there.
There's 4 Detroit Lions there and 1 Buffalo Bill.
Mm-hmm.
So does that middle guy? Is he the one that recovers? What's his number?
Yeah,
7. Is it
7?
Okay? So it is 7. It's the guy that kicked directly at. He does come up with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
And he doesn't have it.
When, when
Bates hits him
right there.
Free.
Yeah, it's free.
And then whoever dove in on the left next to Craig, Zylstra. Vaki. No, Zylstra.
Vaki destroys the guy to keep him away, which is
I thought
savvy
Zylstra
play.
Was
Zylstra probably should have gotten it. No,
the problem
is that's Turner.
Yeah, Turner could have had it, and then Zylstra I thought was coming in, but Jake Bates's leg was in the way. See, like he's tough. tough. Yeah, unfortunately, it just hits Turner and just goes right back into the pile.
So theoretically, the Lions have the ball here, 11 seconds. What, you run maybe one quick out play, then do a Hail Mary? Probably. All right. We had our fun. Damian Smith, £2 super chat says, is AG too slow to make adjustments? No.
I don't think he usually has been this season, but I felt like he was last game. But I also don't know what his answer would have necessarily been.
Right. Especially, I mean, these are new guys too, right? Like these guys have been in the building for 2 weeks, and you spent all of this week game planning one thing. There's not a lot else you can fall back on and be like, okay, now do this thing that we were doing before, because there wasn't anything they were doing before.
The only thing I was thinking was that you could have tried to put Joseph, not Kirby, Brandon Joseph, maybe in a linebacker position on the running back. But if you do that, they were also going big. And now you have a lighter guy, which is part of what makes Buffalo such a challenge, is that they can, if you go light, they can run on you. And then if you go heavy, then they try and pass on you. Like that's part of what their offensive design is. And it was smart, and they were kind of caught in no man's land. The only real option I thought they maybe had was Jamal Adams, who kind of offers the best of both worlds. But Jamal Adams is not the Jamal Adams we know. Right. We've known over the years. Like he is a limited player, and he has a situational role. He's not a guy that you can just put out there and leave out there. Now, if you had Iffy, that would have been your answer. I mean, that's what I would have liked to have gone with, but I don't know. Could they have rolled Branch down again? All of these things that we're talking about would have been, like you just said, deviations from what they had game planned for, and it didn't seem like they were prepared for it, and they didn't seem like they had a counter prepared. Right. And so when Dan Campbell comes up and says it's my fault for not having them prepared, well, yeah. It kind of was the coaching staff's fault, whether it's his fault or AG's fault or whoever's fault. that was something that we knew that Buffalo did. It was one of their MOs, and when the Lions didn't have a counter, they just went to the well over and over and over, and it's they
Yeah.
took advantage. It was a
And
very
but like
well called game by Buffalo.
it wasn't just schematic to me that was some of the issues though. Like the Lions, if you watch some of that tape, like they are just doing some fundamentally stupid things, and I think that's what bothered Dan a little bit too. He's like, these players don't normally play like this. That is not who we are, and then that's why he points a finger at himself. Is like, if they are not playing how I know they are physically capable of playing, that's on me for not getting them there.
And I think we talked about this in the PODD video after the game.
Yeah.
I felt like players were overreaching their responsibilities to try and cover for each other, and that was also coming into play as well. It's something he cautions against all the time and talks about them not doing, and so it's a good thing that it's a good lesson that they can learn from, and then hopefully make those corrections moving forward.
Hey, breaking news. The Atlanta Falcons caught up to the rest of us. Michael Penix, starting quarterback.
Or Kirk.
A little late, guys.
They're 7-7. They're
still in it.
It would take a stretch for them to get in.
Not that much. They have the tiebreaker over the Bucks. They've swept
and they're only
Bucks.
one game behind.
Right.
But I believe the Bucks.
Oh, their schedule.
The Bucks. It's like Carolina, the Saints, and the Giants, or something ridiculous like that. Right. It's like three of the worst 5 teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I know a lot of you have been talking about Teddy Bridgewater, and I do think it's super interesting, and I can't imagine the Lions would realistically bring him back on the roster. Just
where else is he going to go?
But
he knows the scheme. He knows the playbook. If he's talking
practice
about
squad. Practice, like maybe on the practice squad. The Lions can't afford a roster spot given where they are in terms of injuries on a 4th quarterback.
I can see them
clearly not
add him to the practice squad.
Yes,
and then add him to the roster for the playoffs.
Why?
Because they get really squirrely about emergency quarterbacks. Like, okay.
Yeah, that 49ers playoff game really messed with their heads a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. The one option they could do, practice squad, elevate and make him the 3rd quarterback as a practice squad elevation.
Do you want to waste an elevation on that?
Honey, listen.
Did you just call me honey?
Yeah, I know.
What?
I was going somewhere with that and I miss it. I didn't mean not like I was going to say something else and I forgot. I just slipped it up and I crossed 2 things over together. That was weird. I don't know what I was going to say. It was funny. I think I was going to say
so off guard by that.
No, I think I was. I don't know what I was going to say. I'm not even. I'm that's fine. I crossed 2 things together. I don't know what it was though.
I hope you're not watching, Laura.
No, it doesn't matter.
I'm right here.
That's funny. I lost what he was going to say because that's now thrown me off.
Yeah, this entire thing has come to a screeching halt because you called me honey.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't get away from it, but no, I mean, my intention was not that, but that's what happened. We were talking about
Teddy Bridgewater,
right? I know that. I don't know.
You tried to blow right by it, by the way. I'm like, hold on.
I did because it slipped
out.
I don't know what I was. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, we were talking about emergency quarterbacks.
Hey, honey. Hey, honey.
Hi, sweetie. Anyways,
Okay.
how do we pull out of this?
They want that third quarterback. I don't know why they are so desperate for it, but they've petitioned the league for multiple rule changes for it. They've made roster alterations that would look like last year they were planning on trying to have. They have tried to set themselves up because they are, for whatever reason, panicked about that type of situation happening to them. I don't know why, but it seems to inevitably come up.
Sure.
All the time.
So should I ask Dan about it tomorrow?
No. I mean, yes, but no. Well, at least it wasn't on the main podcast, during the recording part, right?
I mean, we are recording this part. It's just
whatever. I mean, there's 5 to 10 people that might watch the VOD, right?
Yeah, you'll get a couple YouTube comments.
Whatever, it's fine.
But I think your most salient point of it potentially happening is okay, where else would he go right now? What else is he going to do at this point in the season?
He's talking about he's already had this discussion with this team, and he's not going to be able to step in week 17 or 18 and learn a system that a team feels comfortable enough to keep him in. Just hire him as a coach if that's what the only team it makes sense for is Detroit.
I'm cool with that. I don't see the point in wasting either a 53-man spot or an elevation on him. You can have practice squad guys just hanging out on the sidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just do that.
I do think the third quarterback thing is wonky, though.
Yeah. All right, we should get back into it. It's almost 9. Jeez. Yeah, let's get back into the show, sweetie. Where was I? Okay. Oops, that's the wrong scene. And we are back here on the Midweek Mailbag. Part 2, half 2, whatever you want to call it, as we enter Bears week once again. Lines 12-2. The Bears far worse. 4-10?
4-10.
That's right. But we're still talking a little bit about injuries and the fallout and what will happen. So let's move here to Coach Mike K, who asks, can you assess Levi Onwuzurike's play this season, and do you expect him taking on Aleem's role moving forward?
Yes, I expect him to take on Aleem's role. I think he's the most talented and logical replacement player. At the same time, I think Levi has been pretty consistent, but he's only flashed, I think, what he's capable of, right? We've only seen flashes of that elite level talent. I think he's been consistently good throughout the majority of the season. He's had a couple of bad games, a couple of maybe slightly above average games, but he's been pretty average, pretty steady. And like I said, a flash or two here or there that where he's really stood out in a positive way. I think his first full season back, from these hard injuries, that's great.
Right.
That's the best I think you could have probably hoped for. Do you hope he can elevate it up and show those flashes more consistently? Of course. But I think we need to make sure that we're, tempering our expectations and keeping in mind he's not going to be a Lee McNeil, but he is going to be a really steady player in the middle.
Yeah, and I think we can agree that he's probably better served in that kind of role than on the edge. They've been playing him a little bit.
Yes.
Not a ton, but he should be in a better spot moving forward, and he's going to get plenty more opportunities. I'm with you. Like, I'd like to see a little bit more flash plays. I'd like to see a little bit of interior pressure more consistently. But he's a guy that's not like, if he loses, it's not like he's getting blown 7 yards back or he's on his back or anything like that. Like, he's generally where he needs to be. It's just the explosive plays, right? The negative yardage plays, the pressures, all of that needs to increase in its frequency, but it's kind of asking a lot of a guy who is almost a miracle that he's even out there on a football field and has lasted for basically an entire football season so far. So I think that's a roundabout way of saying, like, he's probably about an average player right now. And that's, I mean, you'll take that, but obviously it's going to be a step down from Aleem.
Yeah, he is the best option though. I don't really, if they end up having to go another way, I don't know how excited I would be for any of the other options. So I really think it's got to be Levi.
Yeah.
Big ask.
Yes, no question. Next question talks about the cornerback room and what they're going to do moving forward there. Jeff Johnson on Twitter asks, will Mosley make a difference, and do the coaches just not trust him? Is his injury still a concern, or is he close to 100%?
I think he's 100%, but I think he has been inactive the last couple of weeks almost purely from a special team standpoint. With the injuries up front, they've needed to add more depth on their front seven, which then has led them to only being able to keep so many defensive backs. And then with those defensive backs, if you're not one of the starters, you need to be playing special teams. And Vildor and Dorsey were ahead of Mosley on special teams, and obviously he wasn't a starter. And so that's why he ends up being kind of like the low man out. Gives him more time to acclimate, doesn't put a lot of pressure on him, isn't stressing out his injury anymore. And so you're allowing him to kind of continue to work his way back into, game shape. So now that you're have injuries on the back end, you're going to have to turn to him. He was most prominently used in the nickel during training camp, and I think that makes a lot of sense. He has a history on the outside, so that's also going to be an option. But Aleem is in that Amik is in that same boat. Amik is a guy who played primarily outside throughout his career, but played inside all of training camp and has played inside all season. So for me, it's you play your nickel about 50% of the time, you play your outside corner 100% of the time. So if you believe in Amik more, maybe Amik is the guy who shifts outside and you play him outside all the time, and then Mosley becomes your 50% slot guy. And if you're going to incorporate more Jamal Adams, or if you end up bringing Iffy back a little bit more, then you can maybe reduce Mosley snaps a little bit more. But trying to get Amik on the outside makes a lot of sense. At the same time, you've played him nickel for like 6 months, right? Yeah. Now asking him to step outside and play a completely different position is hard. He's really good at what he does on the inside. His run support is fantastic. The way he covers is exactly the way that they want it to be. So, if Mosley is ready, I could easily see Mosley just stepping on the outside and that way you're only replacing one of your 5 safety spot or defensive back spots instead of trying to adjust 2. So I could see it going either way. My gut though, and I'll give you a chance to respond, but my gut is at first it's going to be Vildor on the outside and Amik inside. And that's what we're going to see in Chicago. Where we go after that, we'll see. But that's my gut.
Kindle Vildor revenge game.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Bears fans will be thrilled to see that because they do not like Kindle Vildor.
Former starter against them.
Yeah, I think
for them.
I think that makes the most sense in the interim, like you said. Like, that is the quick solution. That is the let's not disrupt things too much solution. And listen, Vildor, they like Vildor. I think he's better than most fans think he is. He's not outstanding. It'll certainly be a little bit of a weakness, particularly going against a relatively good wide receiving core in Chicago, but their passing game still is not working very well. But yeah, I mean, listen, I kind of thought that might just be the option they roll with moving forward, period. But the way Dan Campbell has talked both on Monday and Tuesday, it seems like they're really considering other options. They're really considering mixing things up, whether that means bringing Emmanuel Mosley into the mix, whether that means bringing Iffy into the mix, whether that means moving Amik on the outside. Like, I think in normal situations, Dan would just be like next man up, but now he's talking about these options, saying like, yeah, we're going to have these conversations. We are having these conversations. And so I'm going to, I don't think I'm going to be able to physically report this when it happens, but my eyes are going to be peeled on Wednesday's practice to see what they're going to be doing, because I do think they have a ton of options at their disposal, and none of them are ideal, but you have options. And that means you can try things that might not work this week, and you'll be like, okay, well, at least we tried that. Now let's try and figure something else out. And I would say if there's a week where you can try things out a little bit, it's probably against the Bears' terrible offense. Like, obviously, you can't lose this game. You don't want to lose this game. You don't want to rock the boat too much and make sure that you come out winners and still have the NFC North and the number 1 seed in your hands. But it is the Bears' offense. And so there's a little wiggle room of like, all right, let's figure this out.
I think this may solidify things for you. One of the main reasons I think he will be the starter on the outside this week is because the last time they played the Bears, he was the starter on the outside because of injury. So he already knows the opponent. He knows the game plan. There's not a big learning curve to just get him right back into where he was. So like for Vildor, there's less complication. It's plug and play. He's got the experience against Chicago starting this year. He had 4 targets. He gave up 2 receptions for 14 yards. He didn't play bad in that game either, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, sorry. You're right. I was looking at a comment that's wrong in chat.
Oh, okay. You were throwing me off. So he's been the guy playing on outside the longest. He's got experience against the Bears. It makes total sense to just keep him on the outside, keep Amik inside.
The one pushback I'll have there is special teams. The Lions don't love to put a defensive guy, a full-time defensive guy, on special teams in a thing like gunner. And Vildor has some of that experience as gunner, and they need another gunner, right? They need a Khalil Dorsey replacement at gunner.
Sure. And
so you're going to have Emmanuel Mosley active this week. But what is he going to do? Is he going to be a gunner?
No,
Vildor is your best special teams option, and so maybe that puts that in his favor and someone else in a defensive role.
If you remember when the first 2 games that Mosley was active, Mosley was a gunner. And so I expect Mosley to be one of the gunners this week, and it wouldn't be surprising to see like a guy like Brandon Joseph be one of the other gunners. Or if you're not going to use Brandon Joseph, then maybe you're going to use like you're going to shift another guy out there that maybe you normally wouldn't, like Maurice Alexander, and you're going to say, hey, Mo, you're pretty fast, just go get him, because you're not doing anything else but punt returns at this point anyway, so why not just go gun down the field and try and get him? So for me, I'd rather replace the gunner. I'd rather replace Vildor at gunner, get that experience on the outside. You don't rock the boat that much. So now you're putting Levi in and for Aleem, you're putting Vildor in for Carlton. And I think it's the least disruption that you can do for this week.
And you know what? Just don't punt. There you go. Solution. You don't need a gunner. Perfect.
Well, there you go. That's fine too.
All right, we've talked defensive line, we've talked cornerbacks. Let's talk linebackers, because Tim Bowers wants to know. So there's no blueprint. Just so there's no blueprint to attack linebackers with passes to running backs, what's the adjustment scheme-wise? So we were talking about this a little bit during the break. Lions got absolutely tormented and toasted when it came to targeting running backs in the passing game, tight ends too. Linebackers got targeted. Certainly other teams are going to know. So what do the Lions do to make sure this isn't a blueprint to success against them?
So you can shift to more dime, where you're putting an extra defensive back on the field to try and get the dime in packages against the running backs. You can maybe drop your safety down and dedicate them, which is not something that you would traditionally do in their style, but it's an option. You can also run more zone in those situations where you're expecting them to target a running back. Like if you're expecting running backs to be targeted in a certain down or something, you could try more zone or you could surprise them with it. So they have some options. What you don't want is you don't want to have to put one of your practice squad level linebackers that have now been promoted to the active roster, putting them in coverage against DeAndre Swift is going to be challenging. And
Sure.
so I would hope they would have that wrinkle of an extra defensive back or the zone option in their back pocket this week.
Yeah, you kind of tackled the schematic adjustments. I think there's also just some fundamental adjustments, some technique adjustments. I think it was Justin Rogers who pointed this out. Like a lot of the issues that they were having was just spacing with their own players. I mean, there were at least 4 or 5 instances in that game where a linebacker ran into his own teammate and caused a wide open guy. Right, that third, I think it was fourth down. That fourth down wheel route to Ty Johnson. I think it was Ezekiel Turner who was on him, and he bumped in like it was a pick play, and they just didn't see it coming. You look at the injury to Khalil Dorsey. That was an instance where 2 guys ran into each other. There was a goal line play that resulted in a touchdown that, again, Ezekiel Turner ran into Brian Branch. Like, there just has to be a certain level of chemistry that has to form here and spacing where you know where your teammates are so that these natural pick plays aren't as effective. And the only thing that's going to improve with that is timing. You have to get time on task. You have to learn to trust the players next to you and know their tendencies and learn to pass off players and things like that. And that is the kind of thing that should have been expected with guys that have only been on the team for 2 weeks.
It was also Turner that ran into Dorsey. So
right.
like all 3
Yes.
of those plays you highlighted were all Turner. The Josh Allen touchdown run that was like the second touchdown they scored. Turner chased Turner in another and the safety. I think both chased the guy into the flat, which is one of them is supposed to peel off, and then
Turner
that's why he walked,
wasn't it? On one of those plays?
No, it wasn't Nowaski. It wasn't Nowaski. It was would have been Neiman.
Neiman. You're
that
right.
it would have been.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, I read Nowaski in the chat. Neiman is who I meant. Yeah.
So yeah, and again, you're putting Neiman out there in situations. I think Turner, after having such a terrific game, then came down to earth in this game. I'm not necessarily. I hate to pile on the kid because he had a really good game the week before, and I think the talent's there, but he was at the center of a lot of the plays that resulted poorly for the Lions, and that's tough on him. But it's kind of what happens when you're playing with guys that, like you said, have only been up and playing defense for a few weeks.
All right, I think we only have time for 2 more, so I'm gonna have to cut a couple of these out. The Zoe asks, in a few games, the Lions have gotten down early, i.e. Buffalo and Minnesota. Since it's important for this team to get a lead to start with, would it make sense on their first drives to do more of a 2-minute drill offense like they did in the fourth quarter against Buffalo to start the game rather than go heavy like in previous games? It's all about establishing the run, establishing the physical dominance of David Montgomery. Would it make sense to come out a little bit faster and go a little fast pace just so they get that early lead?
I think they're going to have to now because they don't have Montgomery, right? Right. Like because Montgomery is not there. He started every game for the first offensive drive. Montgomery has been out there for every game. And so now you have to shift to Gibbs. And I think with Gibbs, you bring a different style of offense. And so could it be more fast paced? Certainly. Do you have to go no huddle? No. Could you? Yeah, you definitely could. Right. If you script no huddle and you this is what we want to do and this is how we want to attack it, you can absolutely set up a game plan for that and then go out and maybe get an early lead. The options are there. Ben typically has an offense that builds on itself, so maybe there's something he's trying to put in that first 20 drives or 20 plays that he's trying to build on later. But yeah, there's certainly options and there's going to be a change this week because personnel has changed.
Yeah, I mean, I do sometimes I feel like people think no huddle is the the cure-all. It's also it can be a very quick way to get your offense off the field in 30 seconds too. You have to be there. There's a delicate balance there, because if it doesn't work, if the chemistry isn't there right away, if there's even a little bit of rust, that kind of exacerbates the problem more so than it fixes it at times. And suddenly you're punting to the Chicago Bears with 14:30 left in the first quarter, right? So you don't want that to necessarily happen. But I think there is some validity to maybe changing your early game strategy now that the core piece of that is gone. That also being said, we do I don't think this team is going to fundamentally change who they are either. I think they want to be able to run the ball. I think they're just going to roll Jahmyr Gibbs out there and hope that he kind of dominates the line of scrimmage. Obviously not in the exact same way, but the offensive line is just as much of an identity of the run game that the running back is. And they're going to want to physically dominate the defensive line and wear them down throughout the game. So they're not just going to abandon the run game, because part of that isn't necessarily just about getting the lead, right? It's asserting that dominance. It's wearing the other team down, so that when it gets to the fourth quarter, your offensive line is feeling great, their defensive line is feeling terrible, and you can run a 5-minute drill to close out the game. And that is still going to be part of their core identity, I think, even if David Montgomery's not on the team. All right.
Do we have time for one more?
We do. Let's do the last one here from Tone Loke. I'm assuming not the actual Tone Loke.
That would be fun.
I think he might not be alive anymore. Anyways, he says, tell me how Lions-Vikings isn't flexed to week 18. Now, I will admit, the way things are currently looking, they're obviously tied. The Eagles are also tied. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, both the Lions and the Vikings control their own destiny when it comes to not only the NFC North, but I believe to the number 1 seed. Either team wins out, they have it. I believe that's true. I'm not 100% sure on that. So if that's the case, if both teams win the next 2 weeks, then that game is for the NFC North crown, and it might be for the NFC title as well for that 1 seed. If that's the case, it's getting flexed. There's no question about it. But Tone Loke is still alive. All right.
Yeah, he is.
Sorry, I pronounced you dead. But here's the great news that I think is being undersold right now. The Lions win the next 2 games at Bears, at San Francisco, 2 teams that are almost certainly not going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
All they need is Minnesota slip up once. And the NFC North is theirs, regardless of what happens in the week 18.
Magic number is 3.
Yes.
So 3.
And Minnesota has at Seattle this week. Not an easy place to play, but still don't know what Geno Smith.
The Seattle just went from the number 3 seed to the number 8 seed,
so they're desperate.
And are out. So they are very much in a we have to win mode. Yes.
But if Geno Smith can't play, I'm not giving them much of a chance.
Yeah, the Packers caught a break with no Kenneth Walker either. But
true.
Go ahead.
But the following week is Vikings Packers.
At Packers. Yeah. At Vikings.
At Vikings.
Yes.
But I'm going to say this right now. I think the Packers are a much better team than the Vikings.
Packers are rolling right now.
And I think the Packers win that game. So in my mind,
that would be it.
In my mind, if the Lions win the next 2 games, they're going to win the NFC North.
The Lions could be, if you beat the Bears, regardless of what happens against Seattle with the Vikings, if the Vikings then lose to the Packers, the Lions could be going into San Francisco for a chance to win the North.
Right. That's, I forgot that's a Monday night game, so they'll already know whether that's on the line or not. So that's a good point. And listen, I just think, and if all that's the case, if the Vikings lose to the Packers, the Lions win the next 2, they clinch the NFC North. There's no reason to flex that game.
No worse than a 2
right
at that point either. You're either the 1 or the 2, and it all depends on Philly. So and that magic number is the same with Philly, right? If Philly loses one of their up next 3, then the Lions are going to be able to jump them too, because the Lions have the tiebreaker over them as well. So if Philly wins their next 2 and the Lions win their next 2, well, the Lions are going to want to win that game in week 18 against the Vikings, just like Philly will want to win. But for the Vikings, they may be stuck at the 5 seed no matter what and not
Yeah.
have anything really to play for.
Right.
And
It'd
so then
be
that
like a 5 or
becomes-
6 seed, right? Like they might be. The Packers maybe
and
could catch them. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Packers might. Yeah. So,
But the other half of this is like, okay, if not the Lions Vikings game, what are they going to flex? Seahawks Rams. Seahawks Rams. We'll see if
that could come down to the wire as well.
No question. All right. I think that will do it for the midweek mailbag. Thank you to everybody who sent in questions either via Twitter or our wonderful Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. The rest of the podcast offerings this week, we're going to have a first bite available on Pride of Detroit Direct that gets sent to our subscribers weekly. May or may not have a midweek or a per view podcast, but we will definitely have a Madden Sim on Saturday morning, so you can come join us on YouTube or Twitch, usually about 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, to do a little fun Madden Sim where they almost always get the game wrong, but we have fun talking about it and laughing at how bad Madden is. So come join us. It's a fun time. But until then, that's Eric over there. I'm Jeremy. Thank you all for listening. It's Chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
I think the Rams game very much has a chance to be the flex because that could be a win and you're in and lose and you go home.
Sure. Yeah.
Hard part about that is if Seattle loses to the Vikings,
Right. They're
then
screwed.
Yeah, then they're in trouble because the Rams path is a little easier because I think the Rams play the Jets next week or something. And so I think the Rams play Jets in Arizona.
Who won the first matchup?
Yes, Rams did, which is why they're in the 3 seed right now.
Oh, then I don't know if that game's going to mean anything because I mean they already have a 1-game lead, right?
No, they're tied.
Are they
the
tied?
Rams have the tiebreaker. Yeah.
Oh, you just said that.
They're both 8 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it could be even if they lose to the Vikings, it could still be Seahawks beat the Rams, and then maybe you end up with the tiebreaker, right? Like I have to look
at
the
other tiebreakers. Like conference record.
Well, it starts out it's division, it's common opponent. That's what you're gonna have to figure out.
I think it's conference after, isn't it? Division then conference.
No, it goes normal, then head to head, then division, then common opponent, then division.
Sure.
When you're talking about a division championship, it's different than a conference championship. Yeah, because I just looked it up because for the Vikings and Detroit,
Right.
So tiebreakers number 1, head to head number 2. So like with Detroit, if Detroit, let's say Detroit loses a game. Let's say Vikings lose to the Packers, and then Lions lose to the Vikings, and they have the same schedule. They would have the same schedule against each other, the same record overall, the same record within the division, and then it would come down to common opponent. And the reason the Lions have the tiebreaker is because the Lions beat the Rams and the Vikings lost to the Rams. And so the Rams would be the tiebreaker for why the Lions' magic number is 3 and not 4.
Okay.
Did you follow it?
Yeah. No, I did. It just. I was trying. We just don't know. We have no idea what the common opponent record is between the Seahawks and the Rams.
No, yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Someone
I'm sure does, but we don't. Because why would we be paying attention to that?
Yeah, I didn't feel like looking that up.
You don't need
But
to.
that could be fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Let's make that the Sunday night game. I don't need another Sunday night game.
No. God, no.
So go Pack, go. Not this
Dude,
week.
I
but-
hate.
Who do they have this week?
The
Do you have
Packers.
anybody hard?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Probably not.
No, they got the Saints.
Saints.
Yeah, so go Seahawks. I mean, that's another reason to root for the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
Root for them this week, whoever they play. Or they play the Vikings this week, and then
Vikings.
Packers.
Yeah.
I'm
Double.
talking myself in circles at this point. We're also should be in the off air. All right. I think I will answer questions for about 10 more minutes, and then I would like to stop talking about the Lions and do other stuff.
Like what? You want to
I don't
answer? You want to answer holiday questions?
Sure. I mean, no, I don't want to. I don't want to answer any more questions. I want to.
You want?
I want
You
to live
want to
my
talk
life.
about? You want to talk about why your movie fandom is getting called into question?
Oh no, I did that particularly to piss people off. It was fun. It was great.
Yeah, Zazu had fun at my house. Sure. Lots of attention with a constant moving environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my house does not stop. So
it's the exact opposite of what my place is, where it's just like I'm there. I'm usually sitting exactly where I am right now, and the rest of the house is quiet and still.
my house moves all the time, and the thing that Zazu was adjusting to was he had some FOMO going on, and he every time someone moved, he wanted to see what they were moving up for, and so he was up and moving for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Life been post-Ash. Great. It's good to know that I still have an upper lip. Got a haircut today too, which was long overdue. I purposely didn't cut my hair. I was gonna do it right before the live show, but I'm like, if we raise enough money, I'm gonna shave my head. That's gonna be a waste of a haircut. And then I just got too busy after that, or too whatever. Just like I did it today. I was just like, oh, I have like a clear hour right now. I wonder if I can get a haircut in, and I did. It was great.
I need to
Trim the beard,
yeah.
clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, probably. One of my kids, I don't know, they said they made some Santa joke, and I was like, do you think I look like Santa? Like my big, jolly red coat wearing, man? And my 4-year-old looked me up and down and went, no, you don't have enough gray in your beard. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks for calling me fat.
Jolly. You're jolly. Jolly sized.
He's like, no, you need a little bit more weight in your beard. You'll be fine.
You just need to look older. Listen, they're pointing out how young you look.
Right.
We got a couple questions like, can either of you play linebacker? And I thought about being like, let me Google search who the oldest linebacker in football is right now, and if we're older than them, then that should be your answer.
Oh, I'm certainly older than them. I might have the proportions. They're just not. My weight is maybe not distributed the same in the same spots as the NFL linebackers are, but. Yeah, Bobby Wagner might be 30.
Bobby Wagner? Is he older? Am I older than Bobby Wagner?
Might be 38, if you're lucky.
Oh, he's 34. Jesus. Not even
Oh,
close. Oldest NFL player. How many injuries does Jeremy get on the first snap?
All of them.
Depends what the play call is. You know what? My body's feeling decent.
Pitch
right
to
now.
Johnny. Pitch to Johnny.
I did kind of
pitch
injure
to
myself during my Colorado trip. We were hiking in a beautiful little Colorado park, and my left leg shot out in front of me. It slipped because it was a little icy, and it hurt my right quad because it just overextended that leg. And I was kind of like, I was struggling for the last 2.5 miles of that hike. We're good now, but that's the body of a 38-year-old, guys. That's what you have to look forward to, you Twitchers and YouTubers. All right, we have a bunch of Lions actual questions now, so let's answer a couple of those.
Okay.
Yes, at some point I will be fielding punts from Jack Fox. I probably should talk to Lions about when we want to get that done, since we're kind of running out of runway here now that I think about it. We did talk about secondary changes, Arnick. I know you joined late, but I think probably best served to just scroll back and watch that. We talked a little bit about it during the last break, and a lot about it during the last segment as well. So that's where you should scroll back.
You can ignore parts of last break though. Certain parts of last break.
Which part? No, I think the last break is must watch. Quite honestly. LJS, is there any concern for Frank? He's had an up and down PFF grade. Don't really care, but I can't ever remember him getting trucked, and I've seen it twice this season, and last game resulted in a sack in the first quarter. Yeah, I mean, last game was extremely uncharacteristic of Frank, and I've already seen people speculate that he's injured. I don't like playing that game. Sometimes you just have a bad game. I would not particularly be concerned, but yeah, I mean, we've probably seen two uncharacteristic performances of Frank Ragnow this year, and I think that more speaks to the high standard we have of Frank Ragnow, that if he has two bad games, we're like, what's wrong with him? Is he dying inside? I think the shocking part of that, though, is that there was so much bad vibes coming from Buffalo when it came to Ed Oliver, and he must have heard it all, because that dude was a monster on Sunday. He had 10 pressures. I think 7 of them were against Graham. To me, Graham's like the biggest liability on that offensive line right now, and he is going through something, right? Like he got X-rays after the game. Apparently he's fine, which is good, because I don't think there's a better option than Graham on the team right now. But he's had a significantly bigger slide, I would say, than Frank has, and hopefully he bounces back, because he was fantastic last year.
Yeah, it certainly feels like age maybe has caught up to him a little bit. He's had more than 2 games that I think have been not as great as you'd want, right?
Sure.
It's definitely been a tougher season for Graham. And maybe switching to left side, maybe that was part of it. Like, I thought it was old hat for him, and I thought he'd be all right, but he's had a bit of a problem. And it makes me wonder if they will have to bring competition in for him next year, right?
Maybe they already got it. Christian Mahogany.
Well, and they like your guy Moody.
True.
They think they could give him a shot again, right? He was doing well in camp before he got injured. So I don't know where Graham's still under contract next year.
They give him a 2-year deal.
So so like, I don't think, and even if he's doesn't win a starting job, he's still an incredibly valuable piece to have.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm less worried about Frank. Frank's had 2 bad games in a row, but I mean, Frank's PFF grade is 82.2 for the season. That's the 3rd highest he's ever had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like he has had a couple bad games for sure, but it's not been as noticeable, like you said, as Graham. But Graham is, there's a lot of value Graham brings, and so he's not at the end of his rope, but he may be nearing the end, closer to the end of his career than maybe we had originally thought.
California Lions has a good question here. It says, who is one replacement player that you think is going to surprise us? And he says, hopefully in a good way. So let's stick to that. Which replacement player do you think could surprise in a positive way?
A replacement for
injury. I mean,
the
any
guys
of the guys
that just got injured, or
I would
Or
say
any of the injuries?
any of the recent injuries. So it could be any of the new guys that are here. I suppose like you could throw someone like Iffy in there, but I don't know if that would even be that much of a surprise.
I think Iffy, like, the expectations for Iffy have gone to almost zero. You know what I mean? Because, like, he's not been available. So if he comes back and produces, it's kind of like gravy. Like, it's not something I'm anticipating him doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Mosley? I like Mosley as an answer. I don't know. I'm a big
I
believer in
do.
Mosley, and I recognize that requires a lot of blind faith at this point because the dude hasn't played in 3 years. But man, I just remember talking to Matt Mayoko about that guy, and he's like, that dude was destined to stardom before the injury bug hit him.
yeah.
And it's unfair of me to expect that level of play right away. But I think there's something there. And I mean, for a guy to even to still be where he is after 3 straight years of terrible injury luck, to be standing there on an NFL team and wanting it, I'm not betting against that guy. I'm just not.
I think the guy who has the impact that will be the most noticeable is Craig. I think Craig, because of their dedication to the running game, because of them wanting to make sure that they're not zapping all of Jameer's energy down the stretch, they're going to lean on Craig. And I think so he'll have the opportunity where he's going to be in the people's vision. And my expectations aren't really that high for him. I expect him just to kind of be what he is. But if he, the opportunity's there, and we've seen it flash in the past. We've seen him blow up Carlton Davis in Tampa Bay a year ago. We've seen him his first year in Detroit have that game against Denver where he went for like 100 and something. Like he's had moments, and so
Yeah. All right.
could easily be Craig.
I like both those answers. You're hidden superstars. Does Tim Patrick get a new deal?
Yes.
I don't see why not at this point. Someone also asked about Carlton Davis, which is, and that's been an interesting discussion all year, I think, right? Is early on, it kind of seemed like, well, he's going to have to really justify it because the Lions have so many guys on defense they want to extend. Then it was like, oh my God, he's playing great. Dan Campbell called him maybe the best offseason addition. They have to re-sign him. And now it's like, okay, well, now he also got injured. He has a pretty long injury history. Feels like he gets injured every single freaking game and misses at least a handful of plays. What about Ennis? What about, I don't know. It's a really tough question. I think I lean yes, that they are going to find a deal with him. And I mean, it's a callous thing to say, but like maybe he comes a little bit cheaper now.
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off. I think he fits exactly what they want to do, and so it makes sense. But at the same time, he's had multiple injuries.
Yeah.
He messed up his thumb. Now his jaw. Like he's and he had another injury I can't recall, but I think when you have players that go through injury-riddled seasons, like teams are going to try and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That's part of the business.
Yep.
California Lions, I didn't bring up Vaki. We talked about that kind of at the top of the show. I think Craig is going to get most of the love, and Vaki's just going to get sprinkled in until he gets more experience.
Are you ready to admit you were wrong about Vaki when I said he's not going to have a big offensive role in year one?
No way. If anything, this is the opportunity for me to be proven right.
But you just said you don't expect that.
No, I expect him to be sprinkled in.
Sprinkled in.
Yeah.
And the way that Craig Reynolds has been sprinkled in this year, which is almost not at all.
Here's the deal with Vaki. But also, you're talking about the reason that Craig hasn't been sprinkled in is because it's been Montgomery.
Sure.
Like Craig is not Montgomery, so there's going to be snaps now available for RB3.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And so I could see Craig get 3-4 times as many snaps, plug away 13 carries, like he's just grinding it out, doing all the dirty work. And then Vaki catches one Texas route and for 20 yards and a touchdown. And then he's the hero. And I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, you've dreamed about that every day this week. That has been literally the first thing you dream about.
If they don't run one Texas route a game, I don't know what they're doing, because they've got two backs that are just chomping at the bit for it. You want to go really nuts? This is what you do. You put them both in the backfield. You motion Vaki out, both Vaki and Gibbs in the backfield.
Okay.
And then you motion Vaki out. And then at the snap, Vaki runs a wheel, and then you run a Texas underneath, and then you just pick your poison because they're both going to be open.
Save it for the playoffs. Although maybe you won't need to. Montgomery isn't on IR, so that's the crazy thing too. If you think Montgomery has a chance of coming back, I assume it's not going to be for 4 weeks. So why isn't he on IR? There's no shot he's back in less than 3 games, right? Less than 4 games. I don't know. I really don't want to get my hopes up because.
Yeah, he very much for in the next 14 hours he could be on IR.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but if they don't put him on IR,
that tells me they're circling probably playoff game 1 is all right.
Yeah.
You're suiting up wild card round or hopefully divisional round.
I'm still gonna back pocket it and my breath until Saturday. You know what I mean? Because they may be oh, we're still going to send them to the doctors a couple more times. And because they may just be oh, we're just going to, on Saturday, then we'll IR them and then we'll add someone from the practice squad type of thing. But I'm going to hold my breath for a few days here. And if it doesn't come tomorrow, I'm going to exhale a little bit, but not all the way.
Dan's certainly going to be asked about it too.
Yeah, of course.
So hopefully there's at least a little bit of clarity.
And he's gonna Hutchinson the answer.
Yeah,
too.
he's just gonna say, listen, we wanted to get a little more tests done. We're still looking at our options. That's what I'm expecting to hear. We could also very much hear, listen, I made a mistake saying that he needed surgery. We could very much hear him say, yeah, we wanted to check one more thing out, but it looks like surgery's coming. Blah 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 blah. We get one of those 3 answers. I don't know.
Cattle Snacks wants to know what my reaction was like when Gibbs ran the Texas route a couple weeks ago. Because in my mind, I know what it was, but I don't remember. I may have been disassociated from reality at that point.
Right,
because
when you say I was yelling at Terrion for pass interference on the last play of the Bears game, which I wasn't. You're lying.
No, you were saying don't do it. Mm-hmm. You were saying don't do it. I imagined that when I saw Texas, I know I yelled Texas. I yelled. I know I did the DiCaprio where I pointed and yelled and went Texas, and I think I hit you in the shoulder.
Yeah, that's your move.
And I do believe that you turned very slowly and smiled, and I think you said something congratulatory or something like that.
I definitely tweeted out, "Congrats, Erik." Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I was somewhere in between the DiCaprio pointing gif and the fan right next to Christian McCaffrey screaming into the microphone. I'm somewhere right in between those two.
Yeah. That's about right.
Oh yeah, Justin did say that to Gibbs.
Yeah.
Justin was telling me about that too. He was he asked Gibbs if he ever watched Theo Riddick, and he was like, "Who?" He was like, "No, I've never seen Theo Riddick." Oh man, let me tell you.
Theo Riddick signed football?
Yes.
Why isn't that in a glass case?
The master of the Texas route himself.
All right. I think it's time to get out of here. It's been fun, y'all. We will be back live. We're not going to be live for First Bite, just so you know. That was a Movember exclusive thing. But we are recording it tomorrow night, so it'll be out on Friday for you Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. We'll also have Ty's article up tomorrow, assuming it's done, Ty. I'm kidding. You're gonna submit it to me in probably an hour, and I'm going to either be in bed or close to bed at that point, and then I'll look at it tomorrow. We already talked about what it is. I trust you. You know I trust you. Any other things we need to clean up here? You're just looking at all the terms of endearment in chat.
Yep. I in my head I'm like, I don't know how this is going to not be brought up every time from now on.
I mean I got a brand new intro for next week's midweek mailbag.
No,
never gonna live it down.
You gotta own it, I guess, right?
You gotta own it, no question. Do we want to send you guys anywhere on Twitch? Do you guys want to go anywhere, or do you want to just go home and call it a stream? I could send you over to the Blevins Bros. They're talking sports over there.
There you go.
You want to do that? You want to do more sports talk? Send you over to the Blevins. You know, I think I've done this once before. Let's send you over to the youngest of brothers. My good friend Chris. I like Chris a lot. He's a good dude. His name's Invictus. They're all Lions fans, to be clear. But Chris is a good dude, and he deserves more support. So I just realized I clicked it. Does it go? Let's see if it works in this chat. I don't think this is going to work. No, that didn't work. Let me go all the way back to my own stream here. Raid. That didn't work either. What is happening?
There you go.
Did it work?
You got it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. If you're on Twitch, you just need to stay where you are. And you go and raid them. Raid Chris Blevins. Talking a bunch of sports. Probably mostly football because it's football season and everything else is secondary. If you're on YouTube, you can jump over to twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit and join in on that raid. If not, we will see you guys at the latest Saturday morning for the Madden Sim, maybe with a Purview podcast somewhere squeezed in between. But until then, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.